Hi, my name is Robin Wong. I'm a photographer based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I found this Panasonic GF2 for about $10 only. In this video, I want to talk about whether this is still a good camera today. Let's do this! A lot of you are saying, hey Robin, why don't you try and shoot with more Panasonic Micro Four Thirds cameras? Try the GX7, try the G9, try the GH6. Well, here's the thing. I cannot buy equipment for the sake of buying the equipment, especially if it doesn't add any value to what I do as a photographer. If it doesn't suit my shooting needs, then there'll be just a cost that I have to bear for my business. Fortunately, in the marketplace, sometimes I do come across some really cheap used equipment, like this Panasonic GF2. It was just $10. That's the cost of just a few cups of coffee. So even if I don't like this camera, it's a guilt-free purchase, it'll be just a really expensive paperweight. But hey, I was genuinely curious about this GF2. It was from the earlier days of Micro Four Thirds system. It was in the beginning of the mirrorless revolution. This camera was launched in the year 2011, and I paired it with this Olympus 25 f1.8. I brought this combination out for some shutter therapy sessions, and here are some shots. This Panasonic GF2 is not a new camera, so this is not a review, but having used this camera for some street shooting sessions, I do want to share my thoughts, things that I like and dislike about this camera. I love the build quality of this GF2. The body is made of metal construction. It feels very solid in hand, and that's a plus point for an entry-level camera. I love the compact form factor of this GF2. It's very small, very light. When you pair it with smaller lenses like this Olympus 25 f1.8, this combination was such a joy to use. It was very easy to handle. I brought this out to shoot on the streets for hours and hours. I didn't feel any strain on my wrists, on my shoulders. It was such an enjoyable experience shooting with this GF2. Oh, and I've complained about this before. I said that I disliked the colors of Panasonic. I was referring to the G9, GH4, LX100, GM1, some of the Panasonic cameras that I've tested before. They all have this purple cast. It's very hard to correct. The colors just look off and not natural, even shooting under bright natural light. Well, I never encountered any of the color issues in this GF2. It was quite a surprise. On this older camera, the image sensor from this GF2, the colors coming out from it, it resembles what I remember seeing from Olympus Micro Four Thirds cameras. The colors look natural, they look pleasing, and the skin tone actually look beautiful. I really love the colors from this GF2, and that makes me enjoy shooting with this GF2 even more. I understand that the 12 megapixels image sensor on this GF2 is quite dated now. This is the first generation Micro Four Thirds sensor, but this camera still produces excellent results. Images come out very sharp. There's plenty of fine details, good contrast, enough dynamic range to work with, especially if you have good light. I also love the autofocus performance on this camera. It's not the fastest Micro Four Thirds camera, but it's definitely fast enough. It's quick and responsive, and that's very important when you're shooting street photography. I also appreciate the touch operation on the screen. Yes, there's touch screen, although it doesn't cover the full screen, but it's still very useful for me to quickly place the focusing point exactly where I want it to, and I think that's a very effective way to operate the camera. Overall, there's more to like about this Panasonic GF2 than dislike, and I've really enjoyed shooting with this camera on the streets. Here are some more shots. There are not many things that I dislike about this Panasonic GF2, and here are some of them. Number 1, no built-in body image stabilization. Both Panasonic and Olympus, they produce Micro Four Thirds cameras, and all Olympus cameras have built-in body image stabilization, which means you can mount any lens on Olympus camera bodies, even the lowest level, entry-level Micro Four Thirds cameras from Olympus, and you still enjoy the powerful image stabilization benefits. That's not the case with this Panasonic GF2. There's no built-in body image stabilization, which means that when I mount this Olympus 25mm lens, there's no stabilization whatsoever. You'll think that it's not a problem, especially if you're shooting under bright sunlight. There's plenty of light to work with fast shutter speeds, but there are some shots that I was confident that there was no camera shake whatsoever. When I went home and I scrutinized, I realized that yeah, it could have benefited from having stabilization in the camera. That could have gotten the shot a little bit more usable and sharper. Number 2, the metal body on this camera, the GF2, is too smooth. There is no rubberized texture for secure gripping, so handling on this GF2, although the handling is actually very good, I like the ergonomics of the camera, it feels very nice in hand, but because the metal body is totally flush, there's no texture whatsoever, you can't grip the camera securely. Sometimes it just slips off my fingers, and that's very worrying. Of course, I secure this camera with this wrist strap so it doesn't fall off my hand. I would appreciate if it has rubberized texture like most cameras, right? And finally, my third complaint is a small one. It's not a deal breaker. The shutter sound on this GF2 is loud. Perhaps too loud. It's one of the loudest shutter sound that I've ever heard. I'm not saying that the sound is bad, it's just that I prefer my Micro Four Thirds cameras to be a little bit more discreet. I prefer to have softer shutter sound, especially if I'm shooting on the streets. I want to be quiet, I want to be agile, I want to be a little bit invisible, right? So having a loud shutter sound, it does cause and draw some attention, which is unwanted. Anyways, none of these complaints are deal breakers. I mean, yes, there's no image stabilization. It could have made this camera a superb camera, a highly recommended camera today, and I can't do that just because it doesn't have image stabilization. Yeah, the shutter sound and the metal body, these are not big things. I think overall, this is still quite a good Micro Four Thirds entry-level camera. That's all to share about this Panasonic GF2 and my thoughts of using it today for street photography. Have you owned one yourself? Please share your experience and thoughts of using this GF2 down in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. If you've enjoyed looking at my photographs, if you found my sharing beneficial, please consider buying me a cup of coffee, or you can contribute directly to my PayPal. Links in the description below on how you can do that. Any small contribution goes a long way, will definitely help me to continue making more content. Until the next one, please go out and take more photographs. Bye-bye.